Okay, so the quadratic formula is the next thing in this chapter. What is the quadratic formula? Well, it's a way of solving for x in a quadratic equation without factoring, without completing the square. Basically, it is completing the square, but it's a shortcut for it. So let's complete the square for the general equation of a quadratic. So here's the general equation of a quadratic. We can think of a quadratic as having a as its leading coefficient and b as its coefficient of the x term and c as a constant equaling 0. We can just think of a quadratic this way. If we wanted to complete the square here and solve for x, get x by itself, this is how you would do that. First, I want to move the c to the other side. Well, we're kind of different color from that. Move the c to the other side. Ax squared plus bx equals negative c. All right, and then typically we would want to factor this a out so that we can complete the square, because we can't complete the square with a number in front of x squared. That doesn't work too easily. So we would have to divide the b by the a in order to factor it out of these two terms. Notice I'm leaving a space here while the dog is barking downstairs. Now, then, in order to get rid of this, I'm going to actually divide it over here. Usually we don't do that, but it just seems easier to get rid of this a right now. So x squared plus b over a x equals negative c divided by a. Okay, next thing is we're actually going to complete the square. So let me use a different color here. Down here, well, let's start it this way. Down here, we're going to have x squared equals negative c over a. And in here, this is where we're going to complete the square. We would need to have half of BA. So this is going to be plus B over 2A. Right, that's half of BA. And then here, we wind up having to add this squared. So that's going to be B squared plus 4A squared. And if we do that, we have to add this to the other side as well, over 4a squared. Okay, so we have this now. I hope you're enjoying the dog barking. Now, we need to take the square root of both sides. But before we do, I want to clean up this side a little first. This is a bit much for me having the two fractions. I don't want to try to take the square root of those two fractions. So x plus b over 2a squared equals, so we could have a common denominator here of 4a squared. So the b squared is totally fine as it is, and the negative c, this is going to need a 4 and another a, so minus 4ac. So that's that term. This negative c is minus 4ac because now it's got a 4a in here and a 4a there. Okay, so now we're ready to take the square root of both sides. So that's going to leave an x plus b over 2a here. Now, remember, you always have a plus or minus over here because basically we had absolute values here. Right? So we had an absolute value here, but I'm just going to go with plus or minus. The square root. Now, this bottom is going to take a square root really nicely. That's just 2a. But the top is not so good, so we're just going to leave that as b squared minus 4ac. Notice I'm gradually kind of making them all lowercase because, I don't know, that's the way we write the quadratic formula. So then you have to subtract the b over 2a both sides. So now we have the x equals negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And they have a like denominator, although this is a super important form, all right, for what we're going to talk about in the next video, a bunch of stuff that most teachers won't show you. And then what people really think of as the quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There's a lot of songs written to that. The most popular of which is Pop Goes the Weasel. Goes along with us somehow or another, which I'm really not going to do well. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So you can sing it if you want, but that I'll teach you how to use in the next video.